Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. And for those who celebrated Easter this weekend and not next, or just like to celebrate Easter, I hope you had a wonderful Easter. For those who didn't celebrate Easter, I hope you just had a wonderful weekend. I am enjoying so much having my author friends join us on Fridays. I hope you're enjoying that too. This week, this coming Friday, we're going to have a guy named HENRY LIEN joining us. You guys are going to love Henry. He's this really super outgoing, fun, interesting guy. His books are amazing. But Henry also writes songs for his characters. So Henry is going to actually do one of his songs for us on Friday also, which will be really fun. He plays instruments. He does the whole thing. And the lady from Frozen, oh no, why am I blanking on her name? I'll have to share this link with you later this week. Idina Menzel sang one of the songs with him at one point. It's crazy. Henry knows everyone, including me, and soon including you. Okay, let's see. People are starting to chime in and say hello. So the Sims are here. Hello, Sims. Always a pleasure. I actually went to church with the Sims this weekend via the internet. We didn't actually see each other, but we did exchange hellos, which was nice. The Barron family is here. Hello. Haven't seen you guys in a long time. Oh, you're all caught up already. I was just going to say that we actually have, I do a little quick, hey, here's what's happened so far usually, to make sure everyone knows what's going on. Hello, Patrick. How's it going? So glad to see you here. I'm sure that there are some more folks joining us. The Reeves are back. Good. Hello, hello. Good to see you. So glad everyone's here. Well, we're going to jump in just a moment with chapter 9. I did say, however, that we would have a. Hold on. Here's a. Oh, yeah. Beth says she really enjoyed hearing Henry on the Fascinating podcast. Yeah, we had Henry on our podcast a while back. Fascinating. Such a good interview. I'll put a link to that actually in the comments after we're done here. Henry's grandmother had her feet bound growing up in China. So really interesting. He talked about that and kind of what that meant and what that was like in his family growing up and how it impacted the writing of his novel, Pea Sprout Chen, Future Legend of Skate and Sword, which we're going to hear a lot more about this week. Okay, Deborah says hello. Hi, Deborah. The Scales family is here. Hello, Scales family. Aaron's here. Hi, Aaron. And Aaron has joined us. Aaron, if you don't know, in addition to being my dear friend, is also our audio producer on the Fascinating podcast. And he's the one that makes us sound good. And he's also the one who edits out our worst gaffes and horrific comments that occasionally happen. So, Aaron, so glad you're here. Okay, and who's this? Oh, the Scales also say, this is Abby and Hannah for Easter. We got your series. You did? That's amazing. Congratulations. That's good news for you and for me. I love that. That's really wonderful. Milena says that she missed Friday, but she's back now. Welcome back. Patricia Lynn says hi. And look, Dr. Awesome is now talking directly to Aaron. It's everything's going well. And Aaron says, I sound great right now. Thank you, Aaron. This environment has largely been created by me kicking everyone out of the house. That's been the big thing. But there are lots of couches and things to stop my voice from bouncing everywhere. So I actually thought of you today, Aaron, because I was listening to the new, have you guys seen the show, Something Good News? It's the guy from The Office, Jim from The Office, saying awesome things he found around the internet. It's really great, so relaxing and fun, but the audio is awful. Like, I don't even think he's using a microphone, and you can tell he's in a little room it just is bare maybe. Anyway, it's a great show, getting millions of more viewers than we are, but he should really step it up a little. Okay. We're going to go into chapter 9. Oh, I don't want to forget, we did have a winner from last Friday. It's Janelle Howard Leonard. Janelle, if you're watching today, you won the drawing for a book from Lori Langdon. So if you have them all already, you're welcome to choose one of my books or another book you want. But if you don't have one of Laurie's books, there's Guilt Hollow, which was the kind of mystery novel, young adult mystery novel. There's Olivia Twist, which is the retelling or a different telling of Oliver Twist. Or there's the Dune series, Doon, which is a 4-book series. It's a young adult romance, fantasy romance. So pick the book you want. Just let me know. Send me a note, and I'll get it in the mail to you. So, and here we go. I've got a couple announcements at the end, but they're all the ones you expect. But let's get into Chapter 9 of the Crescent Stone. This chapter, I was re-looking at it today. It's pretty significant. There are 3 really important characters introduced. 2 of them are Jason's roommates, and the third is one of the bad guys of the Sunlit Lands, one of the Scim. So we're gonna see them too. Hey, look, my publishers, Tyndale, are here. Tyndale publishes the Sunlit Lands books through one of their imprints called Wander. Wander is young adult books with an intention. Some of them, so Tyndale's a Christian publisher, and as always, many of their books come from all of their books come from a Christian worldview. Many of them overtly Christian, and some of them Christian in value, Christian without coming out and saying it straight out, things like that. And the Wander imprint is a way in the young adult books that they can explore different ways of talking about the world for young people. And so that's what the Crescent Stone is a part of. In fact, I think, it was the first or the second book in the Wander imprint. In fact, I think, oh yeah, I could show you on the second book, but on the first book, we went to print before the Wander logo was even done, which is great, by the way. And Wander, even if it evokes for you some feeling of maybe even Tolkien, there's that famous saying that all who wander are not lost from the Lord of the Rings. That is purposeful. So there we go. The idea being we can go into strange different places and find true things in the midst of them. So Chapter 9, here's what's happened so far. Jason Wu and Madeline Oliver are friends. Madeline has a deadly lung disease, which she is not recovering from, and the doctors don't see any chance of helping her. Nothing has been working. None of the typical things that for a young person with this disease might work have been working. She's been on the list for different ways to help and gets bumped off. Just weird things happen. Her ex-boyfriend and her chemistry partner, so her ex-boyfriend is a guy named Darius. Her chemistry partner is a guy named Jason Wu, go with her to the hospital when she faints, unable to breathe. A magical stranger from another world named Hanali appears and says if she'll agree to a human year of service in a place called the Sunlit Lands, in service to his people, the Elenil, fighting the horrific monsters, the Scim, then he will heal her completely and she'll never have a problem breathing again. At first, she's not sure she wants to take the deal, but eventually decides that it's kind of a no-brainer, and so she does take the deal. And Jason goes and makes a deal of his own to also go with her for the year. His deal is he gets chocolate pudding every morning, and in exchange, he will serve Madeline for the year. So he makes a pretty good deal, actually. In the previous chapter, back on Thursday, we read about how Madeline meets her roommate, Shula, and today we're going to catch up with Jason, new to the Sunlit Lands. He goes into a place that's called Transition House, which is a place where new humans are taken before they're introduced to the rest of the Sunlit Lands. And that's where we pick up Jason doing some scientific experiments to discover the truth about how exactly the Sunlit Lands work. This is a favorite section of mine and becomes a pretty key part of Jason's character. For those of you who've been around, you'll recognize this. So let's jump in. Chapter 9, it's entitled Break Bones. The Scim in darkness, deep darkness, accursed, from the Ordering of the World and Elenil story. When you're done looking in the toilet, we can do something more interesting. It wasn't a toilet, though, not exactly. It was a bowl with a lid, but it didn't have any pipes or a water tank or a lever to flush or even a hole in the bottom of the bowl. No water either. It was just a dry white porcelain bowl sitting in what looked more or less like a bathroom. "Hand me that apple," Jason said, kneeling in front of the bowl. His 2 roommates exchanged a glance. They were both thin and muscular. Their names were Kakoa Kakoa Kahana Nui and David Glenn. Sorry, I'm not used to saying Kakoa's name very often. It was not fluent. Kakoa Kahana Nui and David Glenn. Kakoa's short hair had bleached tips, and he had an angular, handsome face. David had dark hair swept back into a ponytail, and so far, Jason hadn't seen him get worked up or excited about much. His default expression was mild, but friendly. "I was going to eat that apple," David said. "This is for science," Jason snapped. "Now give." Kakoa slapped it into his palm. "It's not science, brah. It's magic." Jason slammed the apple into the bowl. He peered down at it, a perfectly normal apple with no place to go. He closed the lid slowly, keeping his head level with the rim, trying to see inside the bowl as long as he could. As soon as the lid touched the rim of the bowl, he flipped it up. The apple was gone. The bowl was pristine. "Where does it go?" "Man, I'm hungry," David said. "I could have had a couple bites if that's all you were doing. You could have experimented on the core." "Magic plumbing," Jason said. Kakoa crossed his arms. "Jason, why don't you take a bath and get all that mud off you, and then we'll take you to see the armory." Jason perked up. "Is the shower magic?" David shook his head. "I don't think so. No showers either. They only got baths." Jason looked around the bathroom for something else to flush. Besides the apple, he'd already done away with a pillow, a bowl they had served him some sort of gruel in, and a baseball cap that had apparently belonged to Kakoa. He hadn't made the strongest first impression. "I miss showers," Kakoa said, "but I really miss toilet paper." Jason jumped to his feet. He hadn't even noticed the lack of toilet paper. "Welcome to the 21st century, Jason. Some of us are noticing it." "What do we use?" David tipped his head toward a folded pile of thin washcloths. "I like the cloths, man. They smell good." Jason sniffed one. The scent was similar to lilies, strong and sweet. He threw one in the toilet and closed the lid. When he opened it again, the bowl was empty. "Seriously, where do they go?" Kakoa sighed. "Listen, brah, I know you love toilets, but you can visit this one every day. Can we go to the armory now? We need a third in our 3 musketeers, and you're our roommate, so it's got to be you." "War party," David said. "I'm telling you, we should be called the war party. 3 musketeers is like French dudes." Yeah, Kakoa said, swinging the door to their room open. "Let's go pick our weapons first, though, okay? I want to check in on Madeline, too." "You're not allowed to see her until after you hear the story of the Sunlit Lands. Them's the rules," David said. "Come on." They walked down the hallway. Transition House was enormous, bigger than any place Jason had been in before. It reminded him of a boarding house or military dorm from olden times, like he had seen in movies. He followed the guys down a long flight of stairs, which had a red carpet held in place by fasteners along the stairway edge. "Don't let Mrs. Raymond see you walking around all muddy," Kakoa said. "Come on," David said, pulling Jason along a narrow hallway that doubled around under the stairway. He opened a door, and a cool breeze washed over them. A wide stone staircase led downward, and torches lit the path. "That shouldn't fit in this house," Jason said. "More magic," Kakoa said. "Technically, it's not in this house. It's some castle somewhere." A wooden door with an enormous black iron lock stood at the bottom of the stairs. Kakoa unlocked it. Inside was a brightly lit white room. And much like the forest path, the illumination had no obvious source. Weapons of all kinds hung on racks and from hooks on the wall. Kakoa threw his arms wide. "Welcome! Here is where we choose our weapons for fighting the Scim." "I'm not fighting anybody," Jason said. "I didn't sign up for that." Kakoa and David exchanged glances. David said, "Yeah, but when you see the Scim, you'll want to." Kakoa ran to the far wall and came back holding a weapon that looked like a large, distended ping-pong paddle with a hole through the middle, sharp teeth jutting out from the edges, and a hooked handle. "This is my Leomano," he said. "This is an old one. It's made from Kawila wood. That stuff's endangered now. You're not allowed to cut it down anymore. Those teeth are shark's teeth, and the lashings that hold the teeth are handmade." He offered it to Jason, who turned it over in his hands. It was beautifully made. "What kind of shark's teeth are they?" "Tiger shark," Kakoa said. "My people made this. Me and David, we like to use traditional weapons when we fight. It's pretty epic when you're out there smashing those Scim." What do you use? Jason asked. What's traditional for you? I'm obsolete. Oh my gosh. You guys, I practiced this. I'm obsolete. Okay. I'm obsolete from southeastern Montana, David said. When Jason looked at him blankly, David said, Crow tribe. He picked up a long hatchet. I'll probably use this one in the next battle. Sometimes I use knives. He spun the hatchet in his hand. I like this one because it's part hatchet and part axe. What's it called? David shrugged. Oh, call it a hatchet axe. I don't know. I never used one before coming here. Kakoa slapped Jason on the shoulder. David and I saw some stuff the other day that would be good as ancestral weapons for you, too. In fact, there's a whole outfit. It's lit. Come check it out. Kakoa and David both seemed thrilled to show him. They took him around one of the standing racks, and there was a full set of samurai armor. The flared helmet, the breastplate, the katana, everything. It was clearly old, and the polished dark breastplate seemed to simultaneously reflect and hoard the light. Kakoa grabbed the katana and held it out to Jason, hilt first. What do you think? The katana was beautiful. He studied the sheath for a long moment before using it to whack Kakoa in the legs. I think that it's Japanese, and I'm Chinese, you idiot. What? So what do Chinese soldiers use? Armored tanks, I hope, Jason said. Besides, I already told you, I'm not fighting. And before you say another word, ninja are a Japanese thing too. Chill, brah. It's not that big a deal, is it? Dude, David said, you want him to call you Samoan? Nothing wrong with Samoans, Kakoa said. But I'm Kanaka Maoli. Yeah, Hawaiian. China versus Japan, that's a big difference. David made a mock jab at Kakoa with his hatchet axe. Kakoa made a face and stepped out of the way. So what should we be looking for? What's a Chinese dude use? Jason picked up a silver broadsword. It was heavier than he expected, and the tip hit the floor with a clang. I have no idea. Weapons have never been my thing. There's a double-edged straight sword called the Jian. But like I said, I'm not fighting anybody. It's fun, though, David said. Seriously, I get in all my war paint and terrify the enemy. We get ourselves to look as scary as possible, and then we take those things out. Yeah, Kakoa said. And so long as you don't get decapitated or something, the Ellen'll fix all your battle wounds, so you're good to go the next day. So that's why it sounded fun to them. There wasn't much risk if there were magic cure-alls at the end of the fight. Why would they even need to fight if everyone was magically better at the end? They might as well be playing checkers for dominance. He liked his roommates, but their laid-back attitude toward war creeped him out a little. They acted like it was a video game, and granted, if they could just respawn after every battle, maybe it kind of was. But he was here for Madeline, not to crush skulls with a shark-tooth ping-pong paddle. I'd need a crazy good reason to fight anybody. It is not my style. Kakoa gasped like he had been punched in the stomach. Oh, he said. Ah, oh no, David said. He starts making weird sounds when he has a big idea. Jason hefted the sword back into place. Do you hear that sound often? Kakoa swung his leomano, a whoop of joy coming out of his lips. Let's take him to see the prisoner. No way, Kakoa. Humans aren't allowed to talk to him. Come on, there's a door right near here that goes straight into the dungeon. No. 5 minutes, David. Then Jason will fight for sure. Besides, what will the Ellen'll do if they catch us? Send us home? I said no way, Kakoa. David Glenn, we're the ones who captured him. The least they can do is let us talk to him. I still say no. Kakoa's eyes flickered toward Jason. Tiebreaker. David folded his arms. Fine. Jason decides. Jason had the samurai helmet on his head and a throwing star in one hand. He also picked up an ancient pistol that looked like it had a harmonica sticking through the middle of it. What kind of prisoner? Who is it? It's a Scim warrior, David said. Jason rolled back on his heels. So far, he had only seen an Ellen'll, and he hadn't been much impressed. The toilets were way more interesting. He sort of wanted to see one of these evil Scim things. Let's take a look, he said. David's eyes closed halfway. All right, then. He set his hatchet axe down. Kakoa bounced from foot to foot and led the way out the door. He locked the armory, then grabbed a torch off the wall and led them through a much narrower, darker corridor. No lock on this door, he said. We don't know where it takes you exactly. I think maybe the palace. David thinks outside of Ellen'll territory. We're not sure. So you have to come back through this door. Don't go up the steps in the dungeon because we're not sure where they go. You could be on the other side of the world if you do that. He cracked the door open. All clear. The dungeon matched every description Jason had ever heard. Dank, dark, and smelling nearly as putrid as the dried mud on him. There was a pile of hay in a corner, and massive chained manacles hanging from the wall. Attached to one wall was a heavily muscled, brutish creature. Its arms were too long, like an ape's. Its skin was the color of old concrete, though a swirl of black tattoos covered most of its chest and arms. It had totally black eyes, no whites, and a heavy brow. Its mouth jutted forward, full of crooked yellow teeth. A small wreath of neglected black hair encircled its gray brow. It wore a ragged cloth around its waist. Its fingernails were wide as quarters, ragged and split. Its ears were tiny and round, flat against the side of its head. Scars crossed much of its torso. Jason's heart revved up immediately. This thing was clearly powerful, and if it got its hands on Jason, he wouldn't last a second. Jason's lips curled back in disgust and terror, and yet there was something intriguing about it, too. It was the most alien thing he had seen in the Sunlit Lands, and there was a strange sort of grace to the monstrous form. He imagined an army of those things and shuddered. Not too close, brah. Jason calculated the distance from the wall to himself, studying the length of the chains. The Scim turned its wide gray head toward him. "This is Jason," David said. "A friend of ours from the human lands." "I'm Wu Song," Jason said. "That's my real name." The Scim chortled. "Truth teller, are you?" Its voice was like gravel spilled on concrete. Jason's eyebrows rose. "Yes. We Scim say only 3 tell the truth. Prophets, storytellers, and fools. Which are you?" Jason considered this question. "Probably fool." "Ha!" The Scim straightened, suddenly interested. "I will trade you truth for truth. I am called Break Bones." Interesting. "I'm called Jason." Breakbone smiled, opening his wide frog-like mouth to display jagged and uneven teeth that were each the size of Jason's pinky finger. "Why do you come to the Sunlit Lands?" "To protect my friend," Jason said. He thought about his answer for a moment. "And to lay to rest old ghosts. And you?" The Scim stood and shook its chains. "To shatter the sun and bring 1,000 years of darkness and terror to the Elenil and all who befriend them, to crush skulls and break necks, to build a temple of bleached bones that reaches to the great dome of the heavens, to humiliate every Elenil before their death, then tear down the works of their hands stone by stone, beam by beam, brick by brick. Only then shall I rest." "Huh," Jason said. "I guess that's why they call you Breakbones." "The fountains will run with blood. The city walls will be shelves for their heads." Better make a priority list, because if you tear down all their bricks and then try to use the wall as shelves, you're going to have to rebuild the walls again. It's a lot of work. "You mock me," Breakbones said, his voice low. "The Scim are not fond of mockery, Wu Song." Jason cocked his head. "Is anyone fond of mockery?" "I think you're ticking him off," David said. "It's a legitimate question," Jason replied, watching the Scim. Breakbone's chest was heaving, his breath coming in staccato pants. "Humans, are you even allowed in this prison?" "We should go," Krakoa said. "I think you get the point. The Scim are terrible monsters." "No," Jason said, answering the Scim. "We snuck in." Breakbones laughed, and the horrible sound of it filled the dungeon. "I like you, Wu Song. When I am free from this place, I will honor you with a violent death. I will not humiliate you with captivity." "Oh, that's nice," Jason said, "though I might prefer humiliation." Breakbones grunted, flashing his broken yellow smile. "What is the name of your friend, the one who is under your protection?" "Don't tell him," David said. Krakoa grabbed Jason's arm and pulled him toward the door. "Madeline," Jason said. "Madeline Oliver." Breakbones wrapped his right arm into the chains, holding him fast. "On the night I bring the darkness to you, I will come with her lifeless body. so you will know. He slammed his arm forward and dust puffed out of the wall where the chain was anchored. He yanked again and the chain rattled, starting to come free. So you will know you failed, Breakbones roared, pulling the chain nearly all the way out. A distant trumpet sounded, and there was the sound of feet on the stone stairway. Kakoa pushed Jason toward the exit, David close behind. They squeezed out the door, and David slammed it shut, leaning hard against it. The three of them stood there, panting. Should we look? David asked. Nah, Kakoa said. The Elena will have him chained back up by now. No need to show our faces. You're crazy, David said to Jason. Jason scratched his head. I guess. He thought about Breakbones' violence. He hadn't even tried to disguise his desire to rain destruction on the Elena, and he had threatened Jason and Madeline for little more than teasing him. The intensity of the creature's violence and his certainty that he could smash Jason to bits terrified him. Are all the Scim like that? More or less, Kakoa said. David shrugged and nodded. Then I'll be beside you in the next battle, Jason said. He regretted his words the moment they came out of his mouth. He didn't know how to use a sword, and the biggest fight he had ever been in was in 5th grade when Maurice Mandrell had made fun of another kid for reading too much. Jason had gone after him with the book, determined to beat Maurice over the head with it, and he had woken up in the nurse's office. His friend said it seemed like Maurice had been tired after beating Jason unconscious, so he counted that as a victory. It didn't matter, though. Now he had said he was going to fight the Scim, and that meant there was no turning back. Not if he was going to be completely honest in everything. From now on, he had to keep his word. Welcome to the war party, David said, smiling. Brah, Kakoa said. We have not settled on that name. They argued about it all the way back to their room. Jason tried to put Breakbones out of his mind, but he kept seeing those heavy chains shuddering under the creature's massive strength. In retrospect, he probably shouldn't have shared Madeline's name. Or his own. The end of chapter 9. All right. And tomorrow we'll do chapter 10. Micah has come home while I was reading. She was out and about for a little bit. Feel free if you have questions to put them up, but a couple little reminders. That is the first book, yes. Friday at 1, we will have Henry Lien with us, my good friend Henry. He is the author of Pea Sprout Chen, Future Legend of Skate and Sword, and its sequel. It's great. It's books about this young woman who does not just she does like martial arts, but she also does skating. They do skating martial arts, basically. It is super fun and enjoyable. And Henry is going to also, as I mentioned earlier, going to sing one of his original songs as well. Tyndale.com is still taking orders if you're trying to get a hold of the Crescent Stone and can't find it. They've got it there and glad to ship it to you during this time even. And the Crescent Stone, if you're worried about things like me stumbling over words, which I should not be doing, especially some of the words that I don't know as well. You can hear Natasha Sudek, an actual professional audiobook reader, will be glad to read it to you. You can get that at oasisaudio.com. As always, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe every time you like, every time you leave a comment. That helps other people find us to come hang out. And of course, subscribing makes it easier and easier to find this when we're going through things. Yes, Dr. Awesome reminds me that one of the roommates' names has a story behind it. Yeah, David Glenn. So David Glenn, who's Crow, Native American, Indian, from Montana. I originally had given him a name that would be much more stereotypically Native American, meaning that it wasn't a name like David Glenn, right? And what happened was 2 of my Native friends read it. One of them is someone who has a more European sounding last name because her family has intermarried with different folks, right? So she's part Native, part European. And a second friend also read it. And he said the last name I had chosen was pretty famous in Native American circles. And he said, if I wrote a book about white people and I named one of the characters Abraham Lincoln, what would you say? And I was like, ooh, I would think that seemed a little like there aren't a lot of people named Abraham Lincoln. He's like, right. Well, the last name you use, most of us know a lot of the family. We know their names. So when you just like make somebody up with that last name, it seems weird to us. I was like, that's really good. So I gave him a couple other names to choose from. Glenn is actually a pretty common last name in the in excuse me just a moment, honey. You cannot do that right now.
I'm turning down the volume.
Micah's trying to watch television right next to me here while I'm doing this.
I was turning down the volume.
Not right now. Anyway, Glenn is a really common name actually on the reservation, but it doesn't have that same like sound as someone who is outside the reservation. You know, that I was looking for this native sounding name, but native people were like, no, it's not. That's not how it works. So anyway, what it shows, I think, is how important it is as we're writing about cultures and people who are from different backgrounds, different genders, different philosophies from us personally. That's really important to get people who are from those different societies, genders, backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, to read your work and be able to give you feedback on whether you are representing well or representing your own emotions about someone else. So anyway, say David Glenn got his name partly because two of my Native friends read the book and gave some feedback, which I'm really thankful for. So that was a young woman named Kat, who's one of my kids' good friends. And it was a guy named Mark Charles. I don't know if you've heard of Mark. Mark's Navajo. He's actually running for president right now. You can check Mark out sometime if you like. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow, we will pick up with chapter 10. And this Friday, of course, we'll hear from Henry. Thank you, everybody. It is a pleasure getting time with you every day. I look forward to it each day. And I'm looking forward to being with you tomorrow. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great